What's going on, everybody? Another week, another video, and welcome to episode 2 of the Power Technology series on my channel, Infinity Knowledge with Aryan. Today, we're going to be learning all about water supply. That's right. We're going to be learning about the 7-step process to purification and clean water. So, I can't wait to get started, but remember, always be curious. Let's get this video going. Water supply. Episode 2. So, let's start it off with a little bit of background knowledge about water supply. First up, there's 844 million people that do not get clean water to drink in our world. That's right, 844 million people. That's why it's very important to preserve water as much as you can, and I'm going to teach you how you can do that later in this video. So, there is a 7-step process to the purification of water before it hits your tap. Have you ever wondered where has the water that you're drinking been before it hits your lips? Well, we're going to learn all about it today. Water supply is a form of power technology because most power resources require some form of water. Only 2% of the Earth's water is fresh water. 98% is salt water. And we can obviously only drink fresh water, and people use about 100 gallons per day. You're probably thinking, I only have about 4 water bottles per day. I don't have 100 gallons per day. Well, water drinking is not the only thing we do with water. We use toilets, there are showers, there's parks in the world that need water, there's decorations, there's so many things in our world that use water. So it's important to preserve it, and let's get into the 7-step process. So, before we do that, let's talk about the main question of why do we even purify water? Well, number 1 is that fish and animals and dangerous materials can infect the water that you're drinking. So, we need to remove all of those dangerous materials. Then, to add minerals and needed items to the water that we're drinking, and then to disinfect any viruses or unhealthy diseases using chlorine. So, number 4 is to clear fungi or other deadly things found in the water. Now let's move on to the 7-step process, as I will explain each and every step so that you understand how this will go. So, the process of purifying water to make it clean water all starts with step 1, which is water intake. In this step, water is flown through a series of different screens. The purpose of this is to filter out any fish or animals or unwanted dirty materials. So, as the water is going through these screens, the unhealthy water is separated and the healthy water is separated so that the healthy water can go on to the next step. And for the next step, we have step number 2, which is coagulation. You're probably wondering, what's coagulation? Seems pretty complicated. Well, in simple terms, a coagulant is a substance that is used to help thicken something. If you add a coagulant to an object or an item, it's going to make it a little bit more thick. You're probably wondering, well, it's water. It's already pretty watery. Why are you making it thick? Well, the water that you drink is actually thicker than the water that are in the streams and different areas of water that you're drinking it from. So, in this step, water is mixed with the coagulant such as ammonium sulfate to make particles in the water clump together. So, coagulation leads to the next step, which is actually flocculation. But before we do that, here's a fun fact for the road. So I told you before that 2% of the world's water is fresh water. Well, 1% of that fresh water is used for drinking water. The other 99% is used for showers, toilets, parks, all of the things that I already mentioned before. So, as I mentioned, step number 3, flocculation. Flocks are clumps of multiple particles, and this step is all about separating the flocks. So 2 paddles rotate to clean the flock. Then the remaining water will go to the next step. So the flock is unwanted material. Basically, as these petals are moving and moving and moving, it's making the flock come to the bottom of the chamber, making it be separated from the healthy water. As you can see in the top right corner picture, on the left, there is a picture of a flock water. You can see that it's pretty unhealthy and there's a lot of stuff in there that doesn't look like what you drink. Then on the right, we have the clean water. And one thing that I want you to notice is if you look at the clean water, it doesn't look so clean. And that's because we're barely even into this part of the process. So now let's move on to the next step, which is going to be step number 4, sedimentation. So as the flock goes through the chamber, it's going to come to the sedimentation tank. And sedimentation is the process of particles going to a bottom of a body of water. So in this step, water is put in sedimentation tanks, which make flock and finer be cleared, and also make suspended solids cleared. So now the flock is away from the water and it is clean to go on to the next step, which is going to be step number 5. So now that we finished the sedimentation tanks, let's move on to step number 5, filtration. In this step, water is poured through different materials such as coal, sand, and gravel. So as the water is pouring through these different materials, the materials catch all the unwanted things and ensure that there's nothing left that's not going to be needed in the water. It also makes sure that the water is at the right texture. Now that we've finished step number 5 and the water is filtrated, we have step number 6, chlorination. The 6th step is where the water is put in a tank and it is disinfected with chlorine. Chlorine kills the infected cells, making the water away from infections. You might have used chlorine wipes to wipe the table or do something else with it. But what chlorine does is it kills those cells that are unhealthy and unwanted. Now the water is pretty much drinkable and clean and ready to be supplied. So now is the final step, storage. Step 7, the final step, is the storage step. At this stage, powerful pumps would push the water into a storage area. After it is stored, it is provided to the specific area, such as your tap, the toilets, the shower, and more. So we have finally accomplished the goal of clean, drinkable, and filtrated water. So let's conclude it all up with the conclusion. Water is one of the most essential things we need in life. And without this process, we wouldn't have that today. Many people in our world lack clean water to drink, as I told you before, which is why it is so important to preserve and save the water as much as we can. Ways you can do this? Easy. You can simply not turn on the tap water while you're brushing, or take a shorter shower so that you save the water that you have. Simple things like these are what are helping the people who don't have water. You can also be donating to places like clean water organizations. So I encourage you to learn a little bit more about how water is purified and made clean to drink. And I'll see you next time in episode 3. Alrighty everybody, this is the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed watching it because I definitely enjoyed creating this video for you. I encourage you to go on and learn more about water supply, how water is cleaned, and the purification of water in general. So if you haven't already, smash that like button, smash that subscribe button, and hit that notification bell. And become a super subscriber today by subscribing to my other channel, Aryan in the House. The link is in the description. Always remember, as we always say on this channel, listen, learn, and leap forward. Aryan out.